We're seeing all three major indexes adding to gains. We'll hear with more on today's rally. We have Jonathan Corpina, Senior Managing Partner at Meridian Equity Partners. And we're also joined by Ryan Payne, President of Payne Capital Management. And Jonathan, let me start with you just in terms of what you're seeing down on the floor. Is today, do you think investors are viewing today as a buying opportunity following Friday's steep sell-off?
I think that might fall in the category of some investors. I think if you take a bigger picture of what's happening and what's going on. Market was up 23% last year, give or take a few percentage points. We've been waiting for some sort of pullback. New 2020 was not going to be the same as 2019. We've only had a 2.5% pullback there. So I think investors who've been waiting for a major pullback missed their opportunity there. They were looking for something that was quite larger than that, especially when you have the headline of the coronavirus come out, which was totally unknown and totally unanticipated by anybody. And still that outcome can play in many different directions. So I think you've got two camps here. One camp is, a lot of unknown happening in that area, and we might continue to get some pressure on the market. And the other camp is we've seen time and time again that this market has been able to absorb negative headlines, whether it's international or domestic, and the market continues to trend higher. And I think we're seeing a little bit of a flush out right now, right? We saw the activity on Friday, pretty strong sell-off into the weekend, the risk-off trade, bounced back yesterday, opened up at the highs today, and we've traded in a straight line all day today. We really have not seen a lot of volatility intraday, which I personally think is good. If we can continue this line towards the end of the day, this might mean that we can rally off till tomorrow. If we start to see a little bit of a pullback, which I don't think we're going to see, considering the market activity we've seen so far today, but if we do see a pullback there, you might start to see some short-term profits coming off the table. And normally, yes, we're going to continue with our economic data and our earnings and caucus headlines that we're still waiting to come out. So all these other factors that are still there can certainly move our markets.
Brian, what are you doing in today's market? Are you viewing this as a buying opportunity?
I think definitely overseas, and we had about a 10% correction already. Some things sold off pretty aggressively. So I think if you're already invested, it's probably a good time to add, or if you're just getting invested, take advantage of it. Now, I'm not quite sure all the selling's over yet. We're having a lot of volatility here, only a 2-3% correction, like Jonathan said. That's not a huge correction, so there's no reason markets couldn't sell off further here, even if we're in a bull market, which I think we are.
Jonathan, you say that the volatility, at least on an intraday basis today, we haven't seen volatility creep back into the market. When you take a little bit more, still taking a short-term view, but over the next couple of days, do you expect that volatility to creep back in?
I do. The day-to-day volatility that we've seen over the last 8 trading sessions is a pattern that we haven't seen in quite some time. So I do think we're going to continue to see some volatility. And as I said before, put coronavirus aside, there are still headlines out there that we were focusing on that was pushed to the side that's now coming back to the forefront. We're going to continue to talk about politics. We had the Fed last week. What's the fallout from there? We've got the president speaking tonight. What does he say? How does he say it? Does he stay on script? Our economic data, our earnings, China tariff headlines. I mean, that was a major market mover, top 5 headlines across the board everywhere you looked. And we're not really talking that much about it. Yes, China with their infusion of capital and what they're asking for the United States, but it hasn't been that major headline. So I think as the dust starts to settle with the coronavirus, these other headlines will come back into our market. And what we did see from the coronavirus headlines shows us how fragile our market is. We've traded out all-time highs. We've been waiting for a catalyst. We did get partially a catalyst. I mean, like I said, the markets only came in about 2.5%, but which shows us that this one unknown headline can move our markets. I think investors are a little bit wary of what that next headline could be. So we probably might see some additional volatility and probably some more selling pressure in the next week or so.
Ryan, when we're drilling down into some of the names that have specifically been hit because of these coronavirus fears, we had a lot of the travel stocks. Now some of the casinos are being hit. We had news out today that Macau is shutting down all of its casinos for the next 2 weeks. After we've seen some selling within these two sectors, are you seeing any buying opportunities with some of these names?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of these sectors are down 10%. And I'm a brave man. I'll even say oil here, which has just gotten hammered. We officially hit a bear market yesterday. It hit that 20% correction territory. I mean, Exxon now trades at 15 times forward earnings, cheaper than the market. You get a fat dividend over close to 5.5%. Even those master limited partnerships would also have gotten hit really hard here, trading really cheaply. So I think all of those things are a great buy, and you have to take the bad news and take those opportunities to get this stuff while valuations are so cheap.
We're going to talk about oil later on in the show, but we've been talking about the potential for how oil could fall because we could see that drop in demand because of the coronavirus. How big of a downside risk do you see this being for crude at this point?
I mean, the market's forward-looking, so it's already factor that in because China is such a big part of global demand, especially global demand growth. So we already see that, so we're already getting that selling. So I'm saying buy now while that price that's already being priced in, be more forward-looking, I guess.
All right, Ryan Payne and Jonathan Corpina, thanks so much for joining me today.
Hey investors, Zach Guzman here. Are you interested in learning more about the markets and getting the latest financial news? Well, then click right here to subscribe to our Yahoo Finance YouTube channel. Get the latest up-to-the-minute market analysis, big interviews in the world of finance, and information on how to manage your money every day wherever you are.